Professor Ujjwal Chowdury, a prominent media academic. He currently heads the School of Media at Pearl Academy on stage. Everyone in our business has learned something or the other from him. Topmost business strategist, Dr. Bhaskar Das. Entrepreneur, artist, social media influencer, and content creator and overall inspiration, Srushti Rao.
I just wonder that at this stage of the program, which is going superb, really do we have space for education? So much has been spoken about web, its monetization, its content, marketing of content and all. But where do you get the raw material, the talent for this? So I have with me a very well-known marketing professional who is for a moment I'd like to also note, a rare person who has not only headed Times of India, today is heading the business side, consulting on the business side of Bhaskar and Republic, but he has also done his PhD in a specific aspect of marketing of media. So I will begin with him, rather than taking time myself. What are your suggestions to make this is the web world. In this web world, to prepare the talent, what are your suggestions that education should be remodeled and restructured than what has been the traditional model that we have seen? Over to you, Bhaskar.
I must say that some people still love us because they are in the room. On a Teacher's Day, good topic to be picked up, but I'm very sorry to say that in the new web world, if you see that some of the heroes that the web has created, whether it's a Khan Academy or whether do it by yourself, the kind of trainers have come up, they can put some of the teachers to shame and with the kind of followers. But of course, people have to get certificates, so colleges have to teach, management institutes have to teach. But I think fundamentally it has to start first with an attitudinal change and a democratic setup. Today, current transfer of knowledge system is basically teacher is coming and talking and students are getting involved or getting distracted. I wonder whether student-teacher, a democratization of relationship is important. Secondly, it's very important that lateral thinking, you have always taught things in a linear manner. And today complexities in the business place, I'm still in the business, so I know it. That lateral thinking is so important. Real life problem solving is not being done. Everyone is interested in getting that certificate, but no one is job ready. Industry is not a stakeholder in the whole academic agenda. So I have a feeling that attitude change in terms of problem solving and getting students, teacher involved in solving a problem along with the industry is the key ask of the time.
Great. I must mention here that you have said about Khan Academy, Coursera.com and many others. The West normally believes that much of the education can be done online, and for certification's sake it's fine, but I do believe the offline aspect of education or campus life is necessary. Necessary to get mentors, necessary to get peers, necessary to get a social life. The entire education cannot be transferred online. You have been into media management and also on content development side, at least managing the business of content, news content. So if you could speak a few words on what should be the new age content developer should be like, in the web world. We understand the print content developers, the television content developers, the radio content developers who have a certain type. But we're moving to a convergence content developer. So what sort of education should be given to the content developer of tomorrow who are primarily on digital, primarily on mobile than on any other platform?
For me, Yeah. See, question is when it comes to content, it is very important that, people have surfeit of content, people are bored with content actually. And everyone is heterogeneously homogeneous. Everyone is saying I am unique, but actually it's all bullshit. It has to be immersive, easier said than done. So there is no formula for that. But the skill is observing common people, the way life moves on. Some of the sessions I heard that the gentleman, the young guy who was talking about Bhuban, I think, and he was so natural and he made me also get sticky to his communication. I think in the campus life is good, but I think the content has to be in sync with the new circumstances of life of the audience and whom we are addressing. In your TG, there are 5-6 different age cohorts which are moving around. What you are giving to post 2000 born and post 60, 70 born is a different ball game. And so you are showing Nagin, it's a highly rated, highest TRP thing, or Kumkum Bhagya, but at the same time you are talking about AIB or various other things. People are using sex and caste happily. You see some of the shows of Netflix. Point is, how do you teach your students now to leverage digital web or web for your classical education format? Suppose they are discussing themselves project challenges and learning how to create content. And their industry can come also and teach them as well as co-create content which will have audience stickiness. I am very convinced today, if you know the answer, the question is wrong today. So you don't have a definitive answer, what should be the best way of creating content? But most important part is that it has to be ultimately resonate in the emotionally, objectively or effectively with the audience that is in the target.
Undoubtedly, that's the purpose of any content, to resonate very strongly. But when we prepare the students for the real life challenges in the content world, and given the fact that while web and digital content is on the rise, there is a huge leap, but we cannot do away with the print and the television or the radio content. So one of the strategies that we do on campuses, we do it at Pearl as well, and I was earlier in Symbiosis there as well. Everywhere, the approach that we do, same event. For example, recently we had this bridge collapse in Kolkata. Or the activists arrest, we know that, the story on the so-called urban Naxals. Now, in such situations, how does a reporter simultaneously, and that's important, simultaneously report for multiple media? So how do you immediately send a tweet? How do you develop it into a short radio podcast, for a podcast or a radio story? How do you shoot and develop a television story? First, only the announcement, dry anchor story, and then full package. How do you develop a content for the portal? And the first thing that you give, how do you update it 7 hours, 15 hours later? And how do you write it for the magazine that comes 5 days later? A daily newspaper that comes next day morning and magazine that comes 5 days later. Same story. How do you package it differently? That's a skill set that we try to bring forth to make the students relevant in the new era of multimedia, convergent, integrated journalism, whatever you can say. Coming to the other aspect of communication, which is brand communication, you have been into the branding world. What sort of training in the web, keeping in mind, well, still now advertising and branding is non-web as well, but web is on the rise. So what sort of training should be done in campuses like ours, in Pearl, or in MICA, or any other? What approach should be done to prepare the trainees, I would rather call trainees than students, talent for future brand communication industry? What sort of suggestions would you have?
The market is changing constantly, you know, as we speak right now. New technologies, new means of advertising, of reaching to the intended target audience is changing. We are preparing. So we are preparing, you know, professionals of the future whom Siddharth can introduce as legends in the next 10 years. So, you know, what we need to concentrate on, that there is a delicate mix of old school, you know, tenderness, if I may say, in, you know, branding, and the new world's aggressiveness in talking about your brand. So that's a combination of education that is required for today's people, because the students that are in classroom today are going to get out in the next 3 years or 5 years, and they are going to be the future brand managers and brand communicators. So educationists should keep that in mind, and that's how the curriculums or the knowledge should be imparted.
You just spoke about fashion. One of the things that we do on campuses is, suppose a student is learning fashion communication or fashion branding. The person has to, again, take up one fashion trend and bring it offline, online, on air, and on ground, content across, even on mobile, content across all platforms. So the same fashion trend or a fashion event, how can you make a video on that? How can you create a podcast on that? How can you write for the newspaper a short review of that particular event next day? How can you write a special feature on that for a weekend feature, weekend magazine? The same thing, how can you blog on it or write a blog on it? The same thing, how can you bring it across all media? That's the skill we try to bring in on campus to make the person relevant, because tomorrow we don't know which industry would be stronger and where he will be serving. And it could be a mix of multiple things. So in conclusion, there is, we had 20 minutes brought down to 11 minutes now. So in conclusion, I would like to say, if you have 200 academicians in front of you of communication, what are the top 2 things that you would say for producing talent for media management and content development of future?
I think it has to start future backwards, in the sense that what are the jobs that will be really required? Because you complete your course after 2 years, the world has changed. So you have to first understand the job, and then you create courses around that so they're skilled. They have to, secondly, it's most important, the teacher has to be also has to be taught. The teacher needs to participate along with the students, with industry, to be to make the students job ready, because ultimately your brand is the student. And then, of course, hold your student's hand for his next career journey, because every 2 years your knowledge gets obsolescent. So people are doing courses and they're thinking they have become PhDs in management. But point is, every 2 years your ideas, knowledge are obsolescent. So look at the way media space, things are changing. So you need, as an academic institution, to see that your students remain perpetually obsolescent free.
With respect to branding, what would be your suggestions?
So it has to be amalgamation of the ability to understand content, to create it, and then market it. So that, that is the kind of brand management
sort of integration of creative, marketing, and technological skills together. Few quick points. Obviously, there is very short time, and just points I can tell as like a PowerPoint pointers. One, we shouldn't be teaching communication anymore. In the web era, we should be teaching conversation. So communication has to be replaced with conversation, storytelling format, interactive conversation. Constant connectivity syndrome. It has pros and it has cons. But in the web era, we need to prepare talent who can be in a constant connectivity. Need to learn monetization of audiences. That's one of the major problems in the web era. People still are understanding content, but they still are at dark to monetize it. How do you really earn money from web content? This has to be a part of the education, which unfortunately is not in most of the communication schools, even in management schools. Next, valuation vis-a-vis ongoing revenue. People understand, I'm creating value, I'm creating audiences, I'm creating target, I'm creating community. But people are not sure whether that's bringing in ongoing revenue. So valuation of the company versus ongoing revenue. Multiplication of screens and OTT impact on learning media. So unfortunately, and because I have been there in the media education space for quite some time across many institutes, OTT is a word hardly pronounced in the classroom. So that's another problem. Intercultural communication, that's another point. A few more things are there, but I believe our 11 minutes are over, and sometime in some other occasion we can go deeper. But surely, for the industry, for the young people in the industry and those who lead, who are not so young by age, maybe by young by their attitude, you need to make education institutes your partners if you have to sustain the growth in communication of tomorrow. And these educational institutes have to come out from the traditional slumber, traditional approach to be relevant in the web-based world, web-based communication world. Thank you for your time.